Random acts of cruelty. We've seen it, we've experienced it, and we've even committed it ourselves. So where does it come from, and why does it exist? Before I get to that, I'll need to tell you about us humans. We, as a highly social species, have the need to keep close and personal relationships with other people. As much as we need food and water, we also need the human touch from our inner circle of family and friends. A death or a loss of someone in this inner circle, though, would deeply affect us, and that's how much we need them. One person in the circle would be great. 5 people, even better. But what about 100, 500, 1,000? The more the merrier, right? Well, in this case, even though these connections are a basic human need, there is such thing as too much relationships. So how many people would it take before you stop caring? Turns out there's an actual number. In the 90s, anthropologist Robin Dunbar discovered a correlation between brain size of a primate species and their group size. He found that the bigger the brain, the bigger the group size. And while most species of primates operated in groups of 50, there was one that operated in groups of 150. And that species is, of course, us. Dunbar's number of 150 is the limit of people that our mental hardware can physically care for. It's the inner circle of people that we're willing to know and maintain a relationship with. Or as Dunbar himself explains, the number of people you wouldn't be embarrassed about joining uninvited for a drink if you happen to bump into them in a bar. The other people outside of your 150, though, they're kind of like movie characters. They're one-dimensional to you. And because of the cognitive limits of our brain, it's physically impossible to care for the other 7 billion walking flesh bags on this earth. You could say you care for them. It's true, you could, but it's not in the same way that you care for your family, your friends, or hell, even your pets. So the point of all this, well, it's where that random ass cruelty comes from. It's where generalizations about other people come from. It's the reason why, in our minds, one death is a tragedy and 1 million deaths are a statistic. And when it comes down to it, the needs of your inner circle will require screwing someone outside of it. And that's the reason why our society does not exist. It's why people would not steal music from a local band, but they'll gladly do it to a mainstream artist. It's why we rage so easy on the roads with other drivers, but we wouldn't do the same thing in the line of the DMV of the same people. It's why war casualties overseas are referred to as insurgents instead of men, women, and children whose lives are just as valuable as ours. Our whole world is handicapped by these limitations. It's proven that an inner circle of people that shares and gathers amongst themselves will thrive, even though no one will make the system thrive. Unfortunately, our system requires us to interact outside of our inner circle. And that's where problems begin. And it's partly why our governments fail. Politicians will stop empathizing with us once they get our vote. The citizens will see the government as a machine of problems, and sadly, they'll see their fellow citizens as enemies. That's because we're not superhumans, just regular ones with mental capabilities, limits. So what can we do about this? First, accept that what you know outside of your circle is just a fraction of a fraction. Still, we need to ask as many questions as possible while skepticizing conclusions that are not ours. The world is complicated and cannot be made simple, so reject any simplifications in binary thinking. There is no us versus them, no good versus bad, no right versus left. Try to understand people, especially those that are very different from you. Instead of differences, focus on similarities. We're all hypocrites to some degree. We've all succumbed to some sort of vice, but don't let this stop us from listening to each other. Behind me is a group of people that understood this throughout history and have demonstrated how to overcome our social limitations by teaching what we know now as the Golden Rule, which encompasses the whole world's population into our 150 and brings us together. By knowing our mental limitations, I hope one day we can push our boundaries and evolve our Stone Age mental capabilities and take a big step towards working together in our insanely complicated world. Thank you.